Hello friend, my name is Raghavendra Agarwal. I am core network subject matter expert. Today we'll discuss on access management function, which is the 5G core node. Let's begin. Access management function is actually the entry point of the 5G core, right? Which means any subscriber who want to access the 5G core services want to register into the 5G core network, right? Access management function is the first node which will be responsible for processing of the signaling being generated by the subscriber who want to access the 5G service, right? So how it happens? The subscriber, as soon as switch on the handset and try connecting with 5G network, right? It connects with the local 5G radio, which is G Node B or 5G new radio, right? And then the new radio or the G Node B will select the AMF, right? So there is a different ways by which the G Node B select the AMF. It may be based on capacity, the relative capacity of the AMF. It may be based on the GOTI, 5G GOTI, right? On by which the G node B select the AMF. So it selects the AMF and forward the signaling message towards the AMF. So that is why we are saying that AMF is the first entry point of the 5G core node. Let's understand that what is a different function, or you can say the different responsibility of the AMF, right? The first one is the registration and the security. Registration means as soon as the subscriber switch on the phone and connect to the 5G, right, and want to connect to the 5G and want to use the 5G service, the subscriber has to get registered himself into the AMF. The registration procedure is the first procedure by which the subscriber can further establish the session and access the internet, right? So in the registration and security means it actually authenticate the customer, whether the customer is authorized or having the whitelisted handset or meeting the authentication requirement. It talks with AUSF, which is authentication function, right? It talks with AUSF and gets the, let's say, the random number, it gets the security keys, and then it will communicate back to the subscriber, and based on this signed respond and SRES, right, it authenticate the customer. It post authentication only the subscriber will further allowed for registration. So authentication is the first step. Once the authentication checks get passed by the subscriber, then only after that AMF will further talk to UDM, which is the Unified Data Management, which is having the subscription information, right? And checks whether the subscriber is allowed to use the 5G service or not, right? It gets the subscription data, maybe the AM data, which is access management data, right? It checks whether the subscriber is allowed to use the 5G service or not. What is the slicing information of the subscriber? What is the QS that is being assigned to these customers? AMBR, QCI, right? So all these information is a part of the access management data, which will be given by the UDM to AMF during registration procedure, right? So once the AMF will check the subscriber is allowed to access the 5G service, right? Then it will further go and talk with the G node B and new radio, and then the context setup will be proceeded, right? The context setup will be executed, context setup request, context setup response, the resource allocation, right? So once all these steps will get done, then it will send the registration accept message. and once the registration accept message will be received by the user, then only the user will be allowed to go and establish the session to access the internet, or you can say the access the 5G services, right? So registration and security is the main function being performed by the AMF. The next one is the subscriber mobility. Subscriber mobility means, let's say that the subscriber is connected into the 5G, subscriber is registered into the AMF. Now the subscriber is roaming around, let's say from one G node B to another G node B. Subscriber is moving from one G node B to another G node B, right? It may be possible that the when the subscriber is changing the G node B, it may be served by the same access management function, or it may also be possible that the new G node B is parented to some other access management function, right? So the responsibility of the AMF is that whenever the subscriber is moving from one G node B to another G node B, it maintains and process all the signaling so that there is a seamless movement, seamless handover or reselection from one G node B to another G node B, and it should not impact the customer experience. You will not, means the subscriber should not feel any no network, right? Or maybe any you can say the free point where there is no coverage, right? And the responsibility of the AMS to give the seamless movement, seamless experience in terms of mobility of the customer, right? Let's further understand what is the different behavior or maybe the different parameter being passed and how the AMF communicate. So as we explained, AMF maintain the mobility of the customer. So AMF knows where the subscriber is, in which particular cell area, in which particular tracking area the subscriber is located. So it maintains that information. It would be required, let's say that any downlink notification need to be sent or any downlink message need to be sent. So AMF must be aware that what is the current location of the customer, in which particular cell area the customer is located, in which particular tracking area the subscriber was located, right? So it maintains that information. It also works with other network function, right? So as we discussed that AMF talk to UTM and get the subscription information. AMF talk to SMF, which is session management function, for PDU establishment, for session establishment. So AMF talk to different network elements in the 5G core node, in 5G core setup, so that it allows the customer to get registered into the AMF successfully. AMF also authenticate the customer. So AMF talk to AUSF, get the random number, the security keys, it talks to the user, pass all these information, and then the subscriber send back the signed response, and based on that it's authenticate the customer. So it supports in subscriber authentication, right? Because if the authentication gets failed, the subscriber will not be allowed to access the 5G service, right? And it allocate the 5G GUTI also. So let's say that the subscriber authentication is successful, subscriber is allowed to access the 5G service, and now after checks all these things, AMF is sending the registration accept message towards the user, right? So in the registration accept message, the AMF also send the 5G GUTI, which is the combination of AMF set ID, region ID, pointers, and the TIMZ, right? So it's a combination of region ID, set ID, and pointers and 5G TIMZ, which will be allocated temporarily to the subscriber, so that there is no need to send every time the SUKI or SUPI information back to the network, right? And it's very small in length, so it's very easy to communicate, right? And it also helps the access network to reselect the AMF who allocated this 5G GUTI, right? So the reselection will also will be easy, and the same AMF will get selected based on this 5G GUTI, right? Let's move forward. AMF interconnects. So as we discussed, AMF is a control plane node. It's process the signaling. It's registered the subscriber. It also maintains the mobility. It's a complete. It's a control plane node, right? And it also talks to different network element to perform different activity, which will further help the customer to get registered and start receiving the 5G services, right? So the first interconnects with the AMF is SMF. SMF is the session management function. So for example, the subscriber gets registered. Now the subscriber want to establish the session so that it get connected with internet, right? So as soon as the AMF will receive the PDU establishment request, which is being originated by the subscriber, AMF select the SMF, AMF discover the SMF, right? What is the session management function who can process this PDU establishment request being originated by subscriber, right? So AMF talk to UDM and get the SM selection information. In SM selection information, it will have the DNN information, it will have network slicing information, right? Based on these criteria, DNN information or network slicing information, the AMF will further talk to NRF and then discovery will happen and the SMF gets selected. Once the SMF gets selected, AMF will forward the PDU establishment request being sent by the subscriber over the N11 interface. So it will use the NSMF PDU session service exposed by the SMF. So it will forward the PDU establishment request towards the SMF, and the SMF will further process the signaling and allow the customer to access the internet or 5G service for that matter, right? AMF also talk to another AMF. As we explained that AMF maintains the mobility of the customer. It ensures that subscribers seamlessly move from one area to another area. So sometimes it may happen that the subscriber move from one area to another area and both these areas are being served by different AMF, right? So it maintains that whenever the subscriber is moving from one AMF to another AMF, it will talk to the peer AMF node and transfer complete context information, the subscription information, so that the subscriber gets seamlessly connected and registered into the target AMF node, right? So it's talk to another AMF over N14 interface. The next interconnects with AMF is NEF. NEF is the network exposure function. So for example, there is any terminating notification which need to be sent towards the subscriber, right? NEF is actually the exposure function which actually talk to any third-party application, right? And any third-party application want to send some notification to the customer, right? So it's the third-party application interact with NEF, and then NEF try to understand the user capability, what is the subscriber state, whether the subscriber is connected, idle, registered, deregistered, right? So it understand the capability of the subscriber. It's talk with AMF, and based on that, it's decide whether to forward the notification or wait, right? The next interconnects with AMF is UDM. As we discussed, during the registration procedure, AMF talk to UDM, which is responsible for subscriber data management. So AMF get the AM data, which is the access management data. It also gets the SMF selection data. It also get the SMSF data, whether the SMS is allowed or not, right? So it gets all these information from the UDM over the N8 interface during the registration process, right? It's also talk to SMSF. SMSF is responsible for SMS delivery, SMS function, right? So it's talk to the AMF for termination, for SMS termination, right? To check whether the subscriber is currently reachable or not, subscriber is currently registered into the network or not, right? So it talks with SMSF, and SMSF checks whether the subscriber current state is registered, deregistered, is connected, idle, right? So that it can deliver the SMS to the subscriber, right? And that interface called N20 interface. AMF also talk to LMF, which is the location management function, right? So AMF talk to LMF to get the subscriber civic information or lat long information. So for example, GMLC is there. GMLC send the request to AMF and try to understand that what is the current civic location of the customer, what is the current lat long of the customer, right? So as soon as the GMLC trigger to AMF, AMF invoke query towards LMF, which is location management function, and get the subscriber civic information, the lat long information, right? And then in turn pass this information to the GMLC for positioning, right? So it talks with LMF over NLS interface. Similarly, NLG interface is towards GMLC. As we discussed that GMLC trying accessing AMF to get the subscriber location or to get the subscriber positioning information, right? Positioning means lat long civic information. Subscriber location means what is the cell ID, tracking area, right? So all these information GMLC trying accessing AMF over NLG interface and get all these information. Next is the PCF. PCF is a policy function, right? So AMF talk to PCF to get the AM policy information, the access management policy information, whether the subscriber as a policy, as a provisioning policy is allowed to access to the network or not, right? So it gets the mobility related policies from the PCF for that particular subscriber. So this is the overall interconnects over which the AMF integrate or communicate so that it can give the seamless experience to the customer. It registers the customer into the network. It provides seamless mobility to the customer. It allows the customer to establish the PDU, the session, so that the subscriber can use the 5G service. Yeah, that is the main responsibility and the function and the responsibility and principle of AMF in 5G core. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much.